Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Travel and Tourism Podcast, my first season. My guest today spent 4 exciting years with Club Med from 2011 to 2015. He began his journey at Club Med Sandpiper as a costume designer and went on to work at Turks and Caicos, Bodrum, Yabuli, and even aboard the Club Med 2. A graduate of the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale and Toronto Metropolitan University, he traveled to more than 30 countries during his time with Club Med. Originally from Trinidad and Tobago and now based in Toronto, please join me in welcoming Narishdath Maraj. Hey, Narish, how are you, sir?
Hey, Greg. Doing well. Thank you so much. How are you doing?
I'm good. Let's get into it right away because you have such a beautiful name. Do you mind telling our listeners what your name means?
Yeah, so it's Narishdath Maraj. It's a Sanskrit name, so an Indian origin. And it roughly translates to king of men, king of all men, that realm of royalty.
You are king of me today, right?
That's right.
Okay. All right. So you have such an interesting background. I'm not sure where to start. If you want to tell me quickly what it's like growing up in Trinidad and Tobago.
Growing up in Trinidad, as you can imagine, it's very warm, very hot. That was probably the best part about it. I grew up in the middle of a sugarcane field. Trinidad was a very large sugar producing country, which is the reason a lot of East Indians were brought to Trinidad. So my family's background owes its lineage into the country because of sugarcane. And it was, the early 90s. Trinidad was still a very underdeveloped place. It was slowly becoming a bit more Americanized, it's very Americanized now. It was a great childhood, running around bare feet, climbing coconut trees and picking mango. And it was great.
I would much rather have had that childhood than the, excruciating cold winters I've had in Montreal. So
I believe it. I question why I'm in Toronto some days.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll get to that in a bit. Okay. Why you chose to leave a place that people go to vacation to come to, minus 40. But yeah, we'll get into that. I'm curious though, like the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale, I guess is this where you first hear about Club Med? Was it from a career advisor?
Yeah, I started Club Med back in 2011, which is the same year I graduated. And I, the time as an international student, and you're granted a year visa, and it was very difficult to get a job being an international student. So I was freelancing for 6 months. And then I went to a friend of mine's portfolio review for the Art Institute. And my career advisor bumped into me and she knew I was looking for a job. And there was a Club Med recruiter from the Miami office there, Michelle. And we had a 2-minute conversation. I had a really old school flip phone that I showed her some of my collection from my last thesis show. And she set up an interview and I had an interview 2 days later. And a week later, I was at Club Med.
Was your interview in Florida?
It was on the phone. It was a phone interview that happened very early one morning. And I don't remember a lot of the interview, but I do remember getting a second call a few days later telling me I got the job. And I was like, okay, this is great.
So your cousin drops you off at the resort and here you meet is it Cara Giacalone James? Is that who you
Yeah, Cara Giacalone at the time. Now she's James. Yeah, Cara was the choreographer on the entertainment team, and I met her at reception with my manager late one night. I arrived late at night. Yeah, it was the start of an incredible career and a great friendship.
Okay, now upon meeting Cara and then knowing that she was the choreographer, did you A, volunteer for the shows automatically, or B, do like me, run and hide from her?
No, I loved dancing growing up. It was something that I did all the time. It was my favorite pastime. I would drape myself in like my mother's saris and put bells on my feet, and I'd be dancing around the entire house. And so yeah, I had a little bit of a dance experience, a little bit of dance background, and immediately I wasn't in the shows because I was trying to get my, bearings right as a costume designer. But quickly they found out that I had a little bit of rhythm, coming from Trinidad. You kind of born with that. So yeah, quickly I was in pretty much every single show.
Okay, we know Cara's stance on this fantastic movie, but I'm wondering what you feel about the movie Center Stage. Is it the best dance movie of all time? Yes or no?
It's
Oh,
a hard question. I don't want to polarize our audience, but I will
oh no.
say I don't think it is.
Okay. Ouch. Oh yeah, you're definitely friends with Kara then. Okay. All right, so you arrive at Sandpiper, which is the week of the grand reopening. All the North American executives are there. Henri Giscard d'Estaing. That's a pretty packed first season, right? I mean, for your first time in Club Med to have all that happening at once.
Yeah, it was extremely overwhelming. I arrived not knowing this was happening actually, and I got there and they're like, okay, 2 days from now we have the grand opening. Thankfully, the existing costume designer was there for a week, so the transition was quite nice. But I was able to meet so many of the popular GOs at the time. All these key GOs from across North America were there assisting. As you said, the CEO was there. All the executives from the Miami office was there. It was quite the really surreal experience to be coming into a company like Club Med, and then your first week you're meeting the former president, son of France, who's the CEO. It was quite the experience. Yeah,
How many months were you at Sandpiper?
I did one season at Sandpiper, so I was there for about 6 months.
Okay. And did it fly by like really fast for you?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, definitely. I mean, when you're working as many hours as you work at Club Med, the days are long, but the seasons are short.
Okay. Now, the night before your departure, I have to know what slip and slide on the golf course means. I'm not familiar with this term. What is that?
Oh, slip and slide. Yeah, so it's quite an American thing, I believe. It's where you take a piece of plastic or a top and you lay it on a slope and you put a lot of water, you set it up with soap and you just run and you belly flop onto it and you slide as fast and as far as you can go. So yeah, this slip and slide happened the night before I left Sandpiper and it was during a thunderstorm, so we probably should not have been outside. So we didn't have to bring any hose to wet the slip and slide. It was all wet already, and yeah, we kind of had an all geo party in the golf course that night.
And you found out the next day there was a special guest on that course with you guys, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The next day we found out there was an alligator on the course, which happens quite often at Sandpiper. They typically have to close the golf course for a few hours and get animal control in, and yeah.
Okay, so the alligator, he wasn't golfing the back nine, he was just hanging out, right?
He was just hanging out. I
Okay.
mean, by that time he probably was a pro golfer, but he was just hanging out.
Okay. So Sandpiper, a lot of GOs do get sent there their first season. So I'm always curious for the second season. Does it, do they still do the dream sheet back in 2012? Like, do they ask you where you'd like to go or they just need you at a certain place?
I don't remember being asked where I wanted to go. At the time, the sports manager, Kelsey Roberts, she was going to Turks as entertainment and sports manager. And we had developed a really good relationship. She really liked the work that I was doing. And I guess being a dancer and, doing circus and all of that, they kind of want you to to be on their team because you're checking many boxes. So I was checking a lot of boxes that she was pleased with. And I remember sitting outside a bar on a day off, and she randomly texted Kasim, who was the LSM at Turks, and just asked, "Do you need a costume designer for the next season?" And the response was yes, and then that's how it happened. Kelsey was like, "All right, you're coming to Turks with me." And there was a bit of time where I might have gone to Rio de Pedras in Brazil. That was one of the options, but I eventually went to Turks and Caicos with the team.
Okay. And here I read that I guess 9 shows were created from the animation team. And here's something that I didn't have in my time that these shows were mentioned on TripAdvisor. Eve. Is that right?
Yeah, it's one of the great things that came out of that season was the quality of the shows was amazing for what we had to work with. And a lot of guests would mention the shows, mentioned Kara, myself, the entertainment team, especially. We really tried really hard to up the game there, and we succeeded. We produced 9 incredible shows, which was a lot of work. And yeah, some of those shows traveled the world with Kara and myself. We recreated them in many villages after we left Turks.
Yeah. And here's what I like about this village because there is a now, when you were coming up, all the social media. So Club Med Turks and Caicos had its own Facebook page. I routinely see the same guests going back and forth, bringing things for the geos, right? Like if you need something, you can go on this Facebook page and say, I need a green bath mat from IKEA, and someone brings it. So yeah. So tell me about, you said you honed your upcycling skills in your job. So what does that mean?
So as you know, in Club Med, you're given a full room of existing costumes and a very small budget, and you're expected to make magic. So yeah, the skill of upcycling, which is repurposing existing clothing, which is something I did all my childhood, designing and cutting and sewing my mother's curtains and tablecloths. And I brought that skill to my collection, which got me the job at Club Med. And then I had to continue that type of work at Club Med, where you take everything that you have existing in the costume room and you use it as raw materials to create something new. Yeah, that story about the bath is it's a good one. There's a very popular GM who's from New York, and he comes to Turks and Caicos 5, 6 times a year. And luckily, he reaches out to the geos and he generously offers to bring things for us. And most people ask for shampoo or chocolate or comfort stuff from home. I asked for a green rug from IKEA because we were prepping for the Christmas show and I needed to make a Grinch costume.
I'm going to guess this GM's name is Norman. I'm just taking a wild guess here. It's Norman, but yeah,
that is a very good guess. It was Norman.
Yeah, so
Shout
you made Grinch costume. See, I would have loved that because that's like my favorite Christmas cartoon of all time. So I'm kind of jealous that you guys got to do that.
Yeah, it was a great. I used the bath math, and I may have quote unquote borrowed some green felt from the maintenance department that was meant to recover the pool tables with, and the rest of the costume was made out of felt for pool tables and IKEA rug.
Yeah, I know. I'm also glad to see that, you weren't spending all your time backstage at animation because you trained with the circus team, performing single and triple trapeze. You also got certified in scuba. Is that right?
Yeah. I started training with the circus team in Sandpiper, but I never performed. And then in Turks and Caicos, there was a lot more opportunity to, train with the team, and there was an opening for triple trapeze. So I raised my hand and I started training. And actually, no, my first performance was single trapeze at the Christmas show, which was quite the experience. That was quite the week of my life. And yeah, I got scuba certified as well. You kind of have to make the most of living on the most beautiful beach on the planet and having access to these incredible scuba diving instructors. So yeah, I made the most of that. It was amazing.
And on your scuba dives, did you ever run into JoJo, or snorkeling run into JoJo?
Ironically, no, but I did see JoJo on, I think it was the last day of my stay in Turks and Caicos. My manager took the entertainment team out on the sunset cruise. And I didn't get to swim with him, but I got to see him for the first time on my last day. Yeah.
Okay. And your chief here is Vincent Grandsire, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Great city. Yeah.
All right. You stayed in Turks longer than you expected, or no? Like roughly how long were you there?
Yeah, I was there for just over a year, so 2 seasons and a bit. The time at the end of my second season, everyone, was getting the affectations for Bali and Japan, and some geos were being sent to Turkey to open Belek. Vincent was going to Bodrum. He had requested about 6, 7 geos to go with him, and I was just patiently waiting my affectation, and then I was told I would be going to Yabuli in China the following season, and that I might have to go home for a season, which wasn't the greatest feeling. But I said, all right, I'll go home. But at the time, my clock came in as the new CDV, and he kept me around. I stayed as the assistant costume designer, assistant snorkeling geo, assistant bar geo. I was just assisting everyone
Oh,
for about
wow. Oh my
6, 7 weeks,
gosh.
maybe 2 months. I stayed there.
Okay.
Yeah, about 6 weeks I stayed beyond my contract, and then I went home. And it turned out that Vincent did want me to go to Bodrum with him. He was just working behind the scenes to figure out how to legally get me there.
Yes, Bodrum in Turkey, one of my most favorite villages I worked at. You know, they call it the Saint Tropez of Turkey. What were your impressions of Bodrum?
Definitely the Saint Tropez of Turkey, that's for sure. It was incredible. That village is so beautiful. All the greenery, all the fruits, and you know it. You know, you're high up on this hill. That's the entire village is built on the side of a cliff, essentially. And the geo buildings all the way to the top, and the theater is all the way to the bottom. So that morning walk, I would always remember that morning walk, just walking through the olive trees and the lemon trees and smelling the ocean and seeing that beautiful view of the rest of Turkey. And on a really nice day, you can see Kos out there. It was probably one of the most beautiful villages for sure.
Did you ever get to take the hydrofoil over to Kos at all?
I did not. No, I didn't. I didn't have that opportunity. No.
Did you get to practice your French?
Yeah, so definitely Bodrum was probably at the time for me the first village where French was the dominant language. Yeah, I did practice a lot of my French. Most of the team from Turks and Caicos did go to Bodrum with Vincent, so it was hard to practice your French when you're used to speaking English to all of the team for a year before that.
Yeah, I see you're also assisting again. You're also assistant snorkeling geo here, right?
Yeah, I was assistant snorkeling geo there. Would take the boat out with the sports geo 2 or 3 times a week, do either morning sessions or afternoon sessions. And well, you know how beautiful the ocean there is. It's crystal clear. There were days we would take the boat out and just go deep sea swimming. It was fun. It was a good time.
When you were there in 2013, was the beach still primarily rocks, like no sand, or did that change?
Yeah, it
Oh,
was still definitely big pebbles and rocks. Is there
okay.
sand there now? That's
No, well,
cool.
no, I was just curious. I was there before you, but I was wondering if that ever changed. Okay, because
No, I
yeah,
don't think so. I think it's still all natural.
okay. And I guess this is a summer village, so you're just there for what, 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, just one season. Yeah. And I got there slightly later than the entire team. So we were waiting for the costume design position to be changed from a GE position to a GEO position. So the team was assembled about 6 weeks before I got there. So which means, I had a lot of work piled up when I arrived.
But eventually you do get to Yabuli in China, right?
Yeah. And at the time when I was leaving Turks, I didn't know Vincent was going to Yabuli, and I didn't know it was Vincent that requested me to go to Yabuli with him. And on the day I arrived in Bodrum, he's telling me, next season, do you know where you're going? And he's teasing me. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to Yabuli. I heard I'm going to Yabuli. I was like, where are you going? He's like, yeah, I'm going to Yabuli as well, Narish. And I was like, oh, this all makes sense now. So yeah, I eventually left Turkey, went back to Trinidad for a few weeks, and then I went off to China.
Okay, so I do want to ask you about your itinerary. I know I'm supposed to ask you about your journey, but do you recall, because I can't imagine the jet lag. So what was your flying itinerary? Do you recall it?
He originally wanted me to go straight there from Trinidad, and I had never experienced winter. I had experienced winter on a vacation just for a couple of weeks, but I owned no winter clothing, no jacket, no boots, nothing. And they were sending me from Trinidad, which was 34 degrees, to Harbin, which was minus 34 degrees. So I had to
Well,
request.
excuse me, Narish. So how long is that flight from your your
Yeah,
your
so
country to China?
that's long. So I went from Trinidad to New York, and I requested to go to New York because I needed to buy clothing. I needed to buy a jacket and boots and such. So I did Trinidad to New York, New York to Beijing, and then Beijing to Harbin. It was 6, 7 hours, then another 14 hours, and then another 2 hours. So it
Uh,
was more than 24 hours in the air for sure.
and then you had the time-honored tradition of geos where you lost some luggage, right?
Club Med does a really good job of booking flights very tight. So I arrived
Yeah.
I arrived in Beijing, and at the time I had just gotten a new passport, a new Trinidad passport. They had switched over to a digital passport. And I guess the immigration officer at the time had never seen a Trinidad and Tobago passport. And he was calling all of his friends over, and they were going through the passport. I thought something was wrong. Nothing was wrong. They just loved it and they wanted to see more of it and show it off. And because of this ordeal, I was extremely tight for my flight. So I ran through the airport, and Beijing Airport's a really big airport. I made it luckily right before the gate closed, but my luggage didn't make it. So I arrived in Harbin at minus 30 degrees with the clothes I was wearing and nothing else. That was it. But
God. Okay.
for 48 hours, I didn't have any luggage in minus 30-degree weather. Yeah.
All right. Now for the geos from my time, so Yabuli, is this a village that's like a ski village, and then in the summer is it open, or is it just open for like the winter season?
No, it's open year round. There's a big 2 month period in the spring where everything's kind of muddy, so they close the village during that time. But it reopens in the summer as a mountain village for hiking and mountain biking and all of that fun stuff.
And I'm gonna guess you were the only geo from Trinidad and Tobago here this season, right?
I was the only geo from Trinidad and Tobago for all of my Club Med time. I'd never come
Okay.
across anybody else from Trinidad and Tobago, and I don't think I've ever heard of any other Trinis being a geo out there.
Yeah, so I hear a lot of people who don't see snow for the first time, but just fall in love with it. So were you, despite the cold, did you like? I know you did learn to snowboard and ski. So did you end up liking
Yeah, I still do not like winter.
it?
But
Yes, my
but I think
brother, my brother. I don't like it either. Okay.
I think once you're prepared for it and you dress for it, it's good. But yeah, Yabuli it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful up in the mountains. Such clean air up there. And it was a great season, experiencing that type of temperature. It's something I think I would have not choose to do, but I'm happy it happened.
And which did you prefer, snowboarding or skiing?
Snowboarding.
Oh, really?
I
Okay.
had more control
So,
over
so
that.
when you
Yeah.
were when you were learning snowboard, you didn't mind falling on your butt like in the beginning? Okay, because I sure did. Okay.
I think it was easier to fall with a snowboard and stop yourself than it is on skis.
Yeah.
So
True.
yeah.
True. True. So I see here that you continue to perform trapeze in the circus.
Yeah, so the circus team there is an indoor flying trapeze that's assembled in the theater during the day. So that was a fun time to keep training with the team there. And then the same theater converts back into for the shows. So yeah, I did single trapeze there. In the winter when I arrived, there was no circus geos early on. They were all, delayed. So there was a couple cabaret shows where I had to perform single trapeze because I was the only guy there that did trapeze. And then eventually the entire team was assembled and we were able to build a proper circuit show.
Since this was your first time in China, sometimes I ask this question: did you have any culture shock when you got there?
Yeah, I mean, I think going to China is probably the definition of culture shock. It's, yeah, for sure. Not just the language, but all of it. Customs, there's a lot to get used to. There's a lot of different.
What? Yeah, when I was a year in Indonesia, I found it hard. Like if you're eating at the table, I didn't speak Mandarin or Cantonese, and my Korean was barely passable. So was it hard to like when you're sitting down eating with guests to do that?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. And a lot of the GMs that came to Club Med there were Chinese, and many of them were first time Club Med guests. So it was kind of hard to explain the concept of Club Med and why you're sitting at the table with them. But eventually, they would get around to it. But there were lots of dinners and lots of lunches where I was smiling and head nodding. And
Yes.
that
Okay.
was what it was.
And
A lot of
thumbs up,
smiling.
thumbs up, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, tell me about this. This looks interesting to me. So you're the Geo team said you would travel to other Chinese cities to promote Club Med. So what's it like doing crazy signs in a mall and public spaces? What's that like?
It was fun, but it was definitely a little jarring because it's sort of like a flash mob. No one really knows it's going to happen. And then you have a bunch of GOs dressed up in costumes. At the time, I think we were dressed as cowboys for some reason. A mishmash of international looking people, a bunch of non-Chinese people in costumes just dancing randomly in the mall. We definitely drew a huge crowd, but that was fun. We were able to go to Harbin to do this a couple times, and then some of the other team went to other big Chinese cities to promote Club Med across China.
Were there a lot of confused faces staring at you like when you would do crazy signs?
Yeah, a lot of confused faces, but the Chinese kids were a lot more engaging, so they would try to dance with you, and definitely a lot of flash photography was happening.
Okay. It's almost like you were a K-pop group or something, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you felt famous. I definitely, Kara and I would joke about that all the time. When we were in China, we'd walk around and people would come up to you and want to take photos with you. They would want to touch my skin. It was interesting. It was kind of unexpected and a little strange at first, but then you realize you just got to roll with it and they mean no harm. So yeah.
How was the food there? And did you have like special dish or certain dish you liked?
So yeah, the food there was quite different. There were, the days where you just had to stick with boiled rice and fried eggs because that's all your stomach can handle on those days. But yeah, definitely the Western breakfast foods were the to-go ones. Having croissants with a chopstick was fun. That was always nice.
Oh, really?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, it was interesting. All the Chinese geos would eat their croissants with their chopsticks.
Okay. And did you become proficient in chopsticks after?
Oh yeah, yeah. You didn't have a choice. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Near the end here, I think you described that you asked for other villages. Did you ever think that you would be able to work aboard the Club Med too? Was this a surprise?
Definitely not. I didn't think that because, I mean, as you know, Club Med 2 is the creme de la creme of Club Med experiences for GOs and GMs. And it is a French ship. It's predominantly French speaking GMs. And my French was not great. So leaving China, Vincent was staying in China. He was going to Guilin and then he was going to open Dangao, and I had enough of China. I was there for a year. I'd gotten really sick, and I was just ready to move on from that village. And I always wanted to go to Bali or Phuket in Thailand, so I requested those two villages. Vincent told me, he's like, you know what, you can go wherever you want. It's like, all right. So I requested both of those villages, and then Thailand fell through because the CDV was taking his costume designer. And then he was like, okay, so what's your next backup? And I was like, all right, I know I'm pushing it here because I don't speak French, but can I go to Club Med too? And he's like, all right, let me see if I can work on this. And about 3 or 4 weeks later, it was coming really close to the end of the season. He presented to me backstage two contracts. One was costume designer in Bali, and the other was set designer and decorator aboard the Club Med 2. Bali was my first choice up until that point, and I didn't realize. I was like, okay, I can go to Bali as a costume designer with geos that I've worked with before, or I can take the chance of a lifetime and go aboard the Club Med 2, where I knew no one and spoke very little French. So that seemed to be the no-brainer.
Well, this is interesting because when you were aboard the Club Med 2 for the Caribbean season, you're set designer. Then for the summer Mediterranean, you're a decorator, right? Is that true?
No, so first season I was set designer and decorator. It's the same position. Second season they added costume designer to my position, so I was doing all three positions.
Wow. Okay. What was it about the ship that made you want it to go aboard? Was it just because it got to go to different locations? You weren't in one spot the whole time?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the opportunity to see places that I know I probably would never have the opportunity to see. And because the ship has such a shallow hull and it's not a large passenger count, we were able to go into small ports and small islands that normal large cruise ships are not allowed in. So definitely the opportunity to see places that you could only imagine you would never be able to see, places you only read about or see on the internet. I definitely had the opportunity to do it then. And I was, yeah, we're doing it. We're going to the ship. I'm going to change my position, figure out how to be a set designer, and just make it work.
And here's my other thing about the ship that geos tell me someone else does your laundry. Is this true?
Your uniform laundry, yes. No.
Okay.
So, yeah, yeah, you're expected to be wearing your uniform, of course, and then you're given a really nice blazer with the Club Med 2 logo on it that was worn during arrival and departure. So you're in a very nice suit on the days of arrival and departure. And that would be taken care of by the laundry department. But no, you definitely had to wash your own clothes. So you had access to the laundry.
Back in the day, I believe like for those the Blazer, Hugo Boss would design them. So in 2014, 2015, was there a well-known designer that designed your Blazers? The Club Med like used designers back
Uh,
then, or no?
I don't remember that being a thing. Yeah, I
Okay,
know we weren't allowed to take it with us. I definitely tried to. I
okay,
was like, I really want to, but
got it.
you had to give it back.
Okay, and you used to make announcements from the bridge in English, correct? Like for the English-speaking GMs during tea time.
Yeah, so at the time, I was the only native English speaking GO and GE on the team. Everyone spoke French and other European languages. And the ship would go through really historic locations during tea time. So it would recreate some, pirate cove or take us to an island that had a incredible history. So what would happen is they would make these announcements from the bridge explaining where we are, talking the history of the location. So I would do that in English after it was done in French. So it was quite nice, being like, hey, this is Narish, your costume designer, speaking to you from the bridge. It's quite nice being able to stand in the front of the boat and address the entire crew and guests. It was cool.
And what's interesting to me is that even though you're from the Caribbean, you got to see islands that you weren't familiar with, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's hundreds of islands in the Caribbean, and coming from Trinidad, which is the furthest southern island, you know of the others, you hear about them, but flying through the Caribbean is quite expensive. Sailing through the Caribbean is quite expensive. So it wasn't, available for us growing up. I had seen maybe two or three islands growing up, and then this time around, I was able to see places I didn't even know existed. In the Grenadines, which is all away from Trinidad. I didn't know there were islands like Biquay where there's still whale hunting happening, and just really interesting places that, again, you only see in magazines, right?
And what's the closest you ever got to Trinidad and Tobago when you were in the Caribbean? Was it close or not close at all?
Yeah, it was quite close. We got to the Grenadines, which is just north of Trinidad. And there was a period when we were supposed to go to Trinidad, but not for a port of call. We were supposed to go to Trinidad for an emergency mechanical issue, which was quite the story in its own. But yeah, we didn't port in Trinidad.
Okay. Here's something I want to talk about because I didn't realize this was being done that, you did, as you say, extensive and elaborate decorations every night, but you would be in a harness hanging off the back of the ship to attach fabric. Like why were they, or why were you decorating the back of the ship?
Well, it was, I came into the position as a costume designer, and I kind of felt like, okay, this is the grandest ship in the world, it has to be I have to put my best foot forward, and I had to prove that I can do this position. And I know the CDV at the time was taking a risk hiring a costume designer to do something he had never done before. So I would come up with these elaborate decorations, and because my background's in fashion, a lot of the decoration was fabric. I would attach fabric to the top of the flagpole. I would attach fabric at the back of the ship above the pool and just stretch fabric everywhere. So this involved climbing the back of the ship, climbing up one of the masts. So I had to be in a harness for safety, and I would climb all the way up. And because I was a circus performer as well, I had the skill set to do it. So I was permitted to, and I was only permitted to do it, obviously, in a harness. So, yeah, I had that opportunity to hang off the back of the ship a few times.
Wow. And since this was your idea, did you, when you were up there, did you ask yourself, what was I thinking? This is so much work, or no?
No, no, I would reenact the Titanic scene where I'd scream, "I'm king of the world."
Okay. Well, your name literally is that. So yes, you kind of have to say that, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
All right, let's talk about this mechanical issue you mentioned, leaving Venezuela. I want to know what it's like. And because of this issue, you end up one week without any guests. What is that like?
Oh, that was probably a really unexpected, pleasant surprise for the team. That is not for the crew that had to deal with the mechanical issue. But the ship goes to Venezuela at the end of one of its cruises. It goes to the island of Margarita, and typically there isn't a lot of Americans that go to Club Med, but for some reason this week there was an American couple on board. So I was in charge of taking care of them. However, they weren't allowed to leave the ship in Venezuela. They weren't allowed to disembark because they were Americans. And we were leaving Venezuela for a 24-hour sail to Martinique. And we knew we would not see land for 24 hours. So we left the shores in the evening. It was white night, big party night. Everyone's raging. And then around like midnight, we start seeing land. And we're like, that's strange. We're supposed to be in the middle of the ocean. So we go to the reception to just figure out where we are, what's going on. The reception's like, the bridge is on red. No one's contacting them. We don't know what's going on. And then we see there's two military Coast Guard vessels on both sides of the ship. And we were being escorted back to Venezuela. And at the time, we're like, oh my God, we have Americans on board. Is this the reason? What's going on here? You know, is this a political thing? But it wasn't. It turned out there was a mechanical issue that the ship had to turn back. And it resulted in an entire week of no guests. So we went back to Martinique. We got the GMs off. They all missed their flights, but we figured it out. And then we stayed in Martinique on port for about 3 days, which was a great experience to have the ship by yourself. And we were allowed to go out. So we went out to the Club Med that's in Martinique and visited that. We all took night passes, partied with the geos there. We even rented a van and piled all the geos into the back of it. And we went to a nightclub and had a great experience there. And then we ended up sailing from Martinique all the way up the chain of the islands to Puerto Rico, where the final mechanical issue was fixed. So we had another 24 to 48 hours sailing by ourselves. It was great. It was great to have the ship without the guests. We would have movie nights. We'd be able to go swimming in the pool. It was great. It was great. There was a lot of maintenance work happening on the inside as well, but a lot of free time that was unexpected.
You would have movie nights in the theater?
No, we would stretch fabric at the back of the ship and we would all lay out on the lawn chairs on the deck and watch movies in the open air.
Oh, really? That sounds
Under the
beautiful.
stars. Yeah.
What kind of movies did you watch? Do you recall?
A lot of French movies without subtitles, so I don't really
Okay.
remember.
Hey, it doesn't matter. You're on the back of the ship. The stars are above you, right? Like, does it really matter, right?
It doesn't. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. No, it was unexpected, but definitely probably one of the best memory on that ship.
And the second part of your season, you go to the Mediterranean. You did a lot of ports of call, but I guess Corsica and Malta were your favorite?
Yeah. Just, I mean, again, places you only see in magazine, and coming from the Caribbean, coming from a small island like Trinidad, I never thought I would see these places. So sailing to Calvi, crossing from Nice, that was always quite the experience. Very, very rough crossing, but at the end of it, you sail into the Port of Calvi, which is this stunning medieval French city, and all the cities in Corsica was quite nice. Bonifacio and Porto Vecchio, great places. And then Malta, sailing into Valletta, I always remember how incredible that was. It was at sunset. The sun was reflecting on the entire city of Valletta. And I don't know if you know what it looks like, but Valletta is built above this huge wall on the edge of a cliff. So it's nice. You see it from a far distance. You see all of the architecture that's lit up by the sunset. And I think the team knew this was going to be quite the most beautiful experience. So they had an all geo meeting at the arrival, but it turned out they just wanted the entire team to be on the deck to see this arrival. And it was definitely worth getting dressed and eating a dinner quickly for.
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah. And I guess you have this memory, your whole life, right? You can close your eyes and you're back there.
Yeah, it was spectacular.
Did you also help out the circus team or trapeze during this season?
Yeah, so there wasn't really a circus team or proper circus rigging. It was because the ship doesn't have the facilities for the medical issues if there's an accident. So there was not a full circus team or a full circus rigging. There was a very low hanging trapeze that you can do maybe 50% of your regular act on it because you're only 5-6 feet above the ground. And you're very, very close to the ceiling, the drop ceiling that was over the theater. So yeah, I did perform circus on the ship. That was quite nice to hang from your ankles sailing across the Mediterranean. I don't think many people have had that opportunity. So it was great.
And during your time in Club Med, were there, other than the people we mentioned, or you can always mention them again, people that stood out to you that you'd like to shout out?
Yeah, there's so many. I have had great relationships with so many great people at Club Med, and being in Toronto, I still stay in contact and see a lot of them as well from here in Toronto, and then lots of geos come from Montreal, so I have the ability to meet up with them and spend Christmas sometimes with geos. So yeah, definitely Cara, who I mentioned before, still my closest friend, Kelsey, Cindy, Lauren, and Sarah, all of who I recently saw as a GM in Punta Cana for Lauren's wedding. That was quite nice. And yeah, Miguel and Alyssa. Alyssa, who is the Cirque du Soleil performer you recently had on the show. I see her quite
Yes.
often. And I actually performed with Alyssa. We did triple trapeze together in Turks and Caicos. So it's quite nice to know I've been able to do circus with a professional Cirque du Soleil artist. That's something I can't put on my resume, but it's a nice thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd put it on my resume. I don't know about you, but I would. Okay.
Yeah, so many geos, Fabian Kelsey, and then all the French and Mauritian geos and GMs on the ship, Virginie, Sonia, Dinesh, all these guys. So it was really, really nice to build these relationships. At Club Med, you become your family, right? So
Is there anything you miss about working at Club Med? I mean, I know obviously in the winter in Toronto, you're like me, you you miss the beach and whatnot. Is there anything else you miss?
yeah, the schedule. I mean, even though you work a lot, it's quite nice to have, well, at least for me, being a costume designer, there was no real time to check in or real time to sign in. I wasn't on a shift schedule. I had my thought task to do. I had my costumes to set up, and then I can do these things late at night, early in the morning, and kind of fit really good activities into my day. And that's how I was able to train with the circus team and help with snorkeling, get scuba certified. I got my job done and was able to build in all of those great experiences. There were days where Karen and I would be like, okay, it's 3 p.m. We're taking 30 minutes and we're just going to go to the beach, jump in the ocean, and get back out and get ready for dinner. It was definitely that experience of having the opportunity to do some activity during a day that you would never get to do in a regular situation.
And as your, current job as creative director at Polo Designs, I guess you can't take 30 minutes to jump in the beach, right?
Yeah, Lake Ontario is not the most appealing swimming location, but
Right. Okay.
yeah.
What would you like to mention? People like to keep people up to date. What you're doing now? Totally up to you.
Yeah. I'm currently the creative director and director of sustainability at Polo Designs. It is a design firm specializing in eco-friendly practices and innovation in the sustainability realm. So right now, I work predominantly in waste diversion methods for the fashion industry and the interior design industry. And I am also a artist. I do large scale abstract work, and I am currently with a team of interns from across Ontario working on a large art installation for Sunnybrook Hospital made out of hospital waste. It's going to be installed in one of their main lobbies as a permanent piece. So that's a huge project I'm working on right now. And I am also continuing some work that I've been doing with Toronto Metropolitan University. I was brought on by the university when it changed its name from Ryerson to TMU. I was tasked with figuring out how to make sure everything that had the word Ryerson on it didn't go to a landfill. So I spent a couple of years working on this and diverting about 12,000 kilograms of material from landfill. So a lot of the work that I do now is in adding value to waste and upcycling, repurposing, making sure there is the largest amount of time can go into a product and the life cycle of items is extended.
Tell me, Narish, we all know that as a geo, probably the two hardest days to work in Club Med is Christmas and New Year's, but sometimes there's one that stands out and it can be incredibly rewarding despite how hard we work. Do you have any Christmases like that?
Oh, certainly. Yeah, I think every Christmas as a costume designer is a nightmare. But I do remember it's a Christmas related story. It was the production of the Christmas show that happened in Turks and Caicos. And the incredible choreographer Cara came up with this elaborate show. And at the time, I really wanted to continue my circus training. And she's like, okay, this is the opportunity for you to do a solo trapeze act. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll do this. But I was on vacation when this show was being conceived, come up with, and I had just finished Halloween, and Halloween's a big, big thing for Club Med, at least in North America. And we was so good that we did it twice. And then I ended up going on vacation right after that. The Christmas show was being planned. I was away. And then I came back to Turks and Caicos and I was told, okay, the show is premiering at the end of the week. I got there on Monday. The show was premiering Friday night. I was in every dance number. I had to train mini trampoline. I had to train and perform solo trapeze for the first time. And on top of that, I had to do all of the costumes. It's one of those experiences that I think about when currently in my current life, when I have, hard deadlines or I have things that I don't think it's possible, I go back to that week. And I was like, no, if I can survive that week and I can successfully do all of these things in 5 days, I can definitely, do anything. And I think that's the beauty of Club Med is it instills those hardworking, you know, values in you that only Club Med can give you. And yeah, it was a great experience. I had to steal bed sheets from housekeeping to dye them green for elves uniforms, and then the Grinch costume was for this show as well. It was a lot of improvising, a lot of late nights, very little sleep for that week, but we pulled it off. It was a great show. It was such a good show that we continued the Christmas show until Valentine's Day the next year. So it was worth it.
Yeah, yeah. No, it sounds amazing. And like you said, myself included, I think, well, I did that, for 10 years. So anything is easier after that. Like, and now you're giving me a weekend now. I get a weekend, it's still not lost on me. So
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah, I guess from what you said, I guess you're happy you took the plunge and applied and are glad for the experience, right?
Yeah, glad for the experience, and it definitely the first season it was one of those jobs you take and you're like, oh, I'll just do this for one season. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do next. And going to Sandpiper, my visa was ending, so I knew it was just going to be 6 months. And then I was given Turks and Caicos, and you never say no to Turks and Caicos. So that's how that happened. And then 4 years later, on the ship, the grandest ship in the world.
Yeah, and you said, I think you mentioned that you've been back to Turks as a GM and you still see your costumes being used. Is that right?
Yeah, the last time I was in Turks, ironically, it was this green bed sheet that I dyed from housekeeping. I was like, of all costumes to still be in use, it's the bed sheets that I dyed green. And I do still see from Norm when he posts photos, I do see, some of the circus costumes that I made. And it's really nice to see your pieces after 10, 12 years is still in use. So it's nice.
The bed sheet that you borrowed. I just want to make an interjection. The bed sheet you borrowed from housekeeping.
Yeah, I borrowed it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Eventually you'll get it back.
Yeah, eventually. Well, Narish, this has been so awesome of you to take the time to do this and share your story, and thank you for your support and continued support on Instagram and whatnot, for commenting or liking photos, because that's how we came across each other. You're always so kind, with your comments and your likes. So I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate the invitation to be on your show and to share the story and to take a trip down memory lane. It was so nice, pulling those photos. It was a great time reminiscing, and it really brings out that Club Med spirit in you that sometimes you forget that's in you, and it's necessary some days, especially in today's world. You need that joy that Club Med, or only Club Med can give you.
Yeah, let's make sure everyone we check out his photos on the My First Season Facebook page, because Narish has some amazing photos, and especially the ones of the Club Med 2 in the background and whatnot. So I hope everyone checks out his amazing photos. And thanks again, Narish, for stopping by and for doing this. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, and I look forward to hearing more stories from Geo's and their experiences. And I love listening to your podcast while I cook. It's great. It's amazing.
Well, sorry you have to listen to my voice while you're cooking, but I'm working on it. I'm trying to go
You're doing
deeper.
great. You're doing the Club Med God's work.
Thank you. Well, everyone, that was the one and only Narishdath Maraj, and I will see you all next week. Thanks again, Naresh. Here's where we say bye to everyone.
Bye, guys. Au revoir.
Bye.